Yeah, happy book launch day. All right. We're live everywhere except, all right, now we're live on Instagram. Yay. Okay, cool. Uh, Yay. So, welcome everyone to another 20 questions. We are here with the brilliant Shonda Buchanan. Today is her official book launch day for the absolutely amazing poetry collection, The Lost Songs of Nina Simone. And I am absolutely honored
The
to
Lost
join
Songs
Shonda
of Nina Simone.
on her book launch day. So what I'd like to do is start with Shonda. If you could tell folks a little bit about yourself and about this incredible book.
Yes. So I was born and raised in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I always start with that because I am very much a landscape poet. I'm very much the Wallace Stegner says, tell me where you come from and I will tell you who you are.
Mm.
And so I'm always thinking about what it means to be from a particular region or a particular place, or what your upbringing was, your ethnicity, your cultural traditions, etc. And it's interesting that when I was younger, I didn't know. I thought I was just being a poet. I thought I was just writing about life and love and, whatever. And then it was like, no, you're actually developing a voice. You're developing your own identity as a writer. You're developing and writing in a way that people are gravitating towards your work, your poetry, your fiction, your nonfiction. And then I started to realize, oh, this is actually a tool. Like, language is a tool for us for writers to convey information, share something that hasn't been shared before, uncover an entire tradition, history, and heritage, which is what a lot of African-American authors like Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Ishmael Reed, the new authors, actually, I can mention some of the new folks too, like Jake Lamar. He's actually my age, but he's got a comeback happening in Paris right now. But we have been African American, Asian American, American Indian, Native American, Indigenous writers of the diaspora, African writers. We have been using language as a way to tell a story that hasn't been told about us, and that's what I did with with this book. Is I knew when I was writing this book, I knew Nina Simone. I knew I had a large kettle to fill in terms of trying to get some information right. That a lot of people know her work, they know what she has gone through, what she's experienced. Maybe some of them have read her autobiography, the autobiography of Nina Simone, which she wrote with Stephen Cleary. Maybe they saw her perform someplace. So everyone had a bit of ownership with Nina. And so when I discovered her cassette tape in my early 20s in Kalamazoo, Michigan, at a mall, at a so just fell in love with her. And little by little after that, I just started kind of discovering, like, wait, what is she really about? Bought her autobiography. I bought her fan club's autobiography because everyone has a different story of Nina. And I started writing those poems, and little by little, it started to become something. And people kept telling me, they were like, you've got a book about her. And I was like, no, I just love Nina Simone. I'm just going to go to Paris and try to interview her, which I did in 1991. And I just dropped the link on my Substack. So follow me on Substack, people. I just dropped that link. But I said, I'm a journalist. I've been writing, all my life. Let me just go interview her. Just ask her questions and see, maybe she'll take kindly to me and not chase me off of her lawn with a gun like she did another journalist. You know, maybe. So yeah, so I just I really, this book came out of a love for her, for her music, her agency and artistry, and then the struggles that she had as a Black woman in America.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. So I am going to dive into the 20 questions. Some of them are going to feel very irreverent, and hopefully some of them will kind of resound. So what is the first book you remember reading?
The first book I remember reading, so the very, very first book was Harriet the Spy. And that was my how to stop being a people pleaser. Did you read Harriet the Spy?
I believe so. Yeah, I was the nerdy kid who would go to libraries and just devour everything I could find. So yeah.
That was me. So Harriet the Spy was my first book that I remember reading. But one of the first, and it was impactful, but one of the real first impactful books for me was I Am the Darker Brother, which I found that book when I was 9, and it was a collection of Harlem Renaissance and New Negro Movement poets and Black arts poets. And I was 9 reading this book. So that's that question. I'll stop there.
Wow. So who's your favorite author, like in general?
Lisa, that's such a hard question. That's such an unfair question for a voracious reader. Gosh, who's my favorite author? I have a stack on my table of 2 read authors who I've heard read recently. So Imani Perry is someone who I cannot wait to devour two of her latest books. Edwidge Danticat, fave. I love the way she puts words on the page. Toni Morrison. Oh my gosh. Oh, Leslie Marmon Silko, Joy Harjo. I don't have one favorite because I go into certain books for a particular feeling. Tony Adeyemi, Children of Blood and Bones. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I can't just say one author. If I did say one author, that just would not be true of my life.
Well, gorgeous list. Just saying, gorgeous list. Who do you feel influenced your writing the most? I know, obviously, Nina Simone, but in addition to Nina,
definitely Toni Morrison, because Toni Morrison took the Black tradition and Black culture and embedded it in her stories, her incredibly well-researched stories. But she was allowed to flower out and to be as narrative heavy as she wanted to be. And now people are saying, you should just tell the story, like show it, like give us a scene. You can't be writing all this exposition. And I'm like, but that's a part of the tradition, a part of the culture. So when I wrote my first memoir, Black Indian, people loved that, loved it. And I realized with the second memoir that I'm writing now, I am doing a combination of exposition, but also more like plotting, like scene plotting, even though it's a memoir. And you usually think of plot with fiction. So, but yeah, so Toni Morrison, one of my favorite writers. I go back to Joy Harjo, Crazy Brave. She Had Some Horses, amazing. Angela's Ashes. If I'm thinking about memoirs that I've read that impacted my own memoir and my work, was Frank McCord's Angela's Ashes. Oh my gosh, The Liars Club by Mary Karr. Yeah, so I would say that they really influenced me in terms of voice, in terms of pacing, in terms of scene setting, and then really developing a sometimes hard, sometimes funny story.
Mm, fabulous. If you could read only one book for the rest of your life, what would that book be?
So hard. If I was on a desert island and I could only bring one book with me to read over and over and over and over and over again, it would be between Beloved by Toni Morrison and Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison.
Oh, God, yeah. They're both just brilliant. Brilliant. And what books do you reread all the time?
Okay, so this book that I love, I started reading it in middle school. It's by Anne McCaffrey. Anne McCaffrey is an Irish writer, and she wrote a book about one of the first writers to write a book about dragons and fire lizards. It's like, what's a fire lizard? So the book that I fell in love with, it's called The Fire Lizards, and she's got 3 in the series, and then there's a 4th one, which transitions to someone else's story. But I'm going to tell you, when I first read that book in middle school, I actually probably read it maybe 4 times that summer, and then I've read it every year after, because there was something in the narrative that I gravitated towards, which is understanding the protagonist in the story. It's a young girl who was misunderstood by her family. Mm-hmm. Hello, that's me, a young writer girl, too precocious, misunderstood by her family. And our physical circumstances were different. She was on a totally different planet, from what Anne McCaffrey created. But that's the power of story, right? It's that no matter where you come from, if the writer is writing with the sense of bringing you into the story and the narrative as someone who can empathize with the character, that's the power of a well-told story.
Wow.
Or poem.
And
poem.
And poem, yes, absolutely. What book or books would you save in a book burning?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. Oh my gosh, all of them. I would probably have to plant my body in front of the book burner people and I probably couldn't even look. What books would I save from book burning? Book by women authors.
Oh, I love that.
That way I can say every woman who writes.
Wow. I love that. Who did you allow to actually read the lost songs of Nina Simone as you were writing it?
If I can say books by women authors, then I'm saving like a slew of stories and narratives that we need for our survival. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So who did you allow to actually read the lost songs of Nina Simone as you were writing it? Or did you allow anyone?
I did. I needed help, and I also needed validation. I was so grateful to let several good readers read it. So Taimba Jess is a friend of mine, and I met Jess many years ago when I was in my MFA program at Antioch University, and he and I stayed in touch. He was working on a book. we essentially, he wasn't necessarily running anything by me, just like talking conversations. And I said, I'm working on that Nina book, and I'm going to be sending that to you 5 years later. And so he read some of the poems, gave me comments on the poems. Ethelbert Miller, another amazing man, poet laureate in Washington, D.C., unofficial poet laureate of Washington, D.C., we say. But Ethelbert Miller, I will say Liz Camford. Liz works at Random House. And so she wasn't picking my book for Random House. She was just saying, look, I work with Terrence Hayes. I work with some other people. I would love to read your book. And if Random House had, if they were choosing poetry, then, that would be great. I can put you in contact with some people. But if not, then no, I just want to read your book. She was incredibly supportive. Sun Cooper. Sun Cooper is an editor. She's an Indigenous woman in Oklahoma. And she was actually one of the first agents to shop the book as well. And it wasn't getting placed with Sun. And she said, you know what, I'm going to give you the book back, and you can give it to like another, to someone else, but it's not placing right now. And, and if I see anyone, I will help you. But it was just consistent support and consistent people saying, okay, you know what, you've got a great book here. Oh my gosh, I have to mention the former director of the MFA program at William and Mary College, which is where I was I was the writer in residence there for, when was I? It was the fall semester 27-18, during the time when I was getting my divorce, my second divorce. That's in the second memoir. It's so exciting. But Nancy Schomburger was essentially, she said, look, I know you have poems, and I also know that you are working on a book proposal for a biography about Nina Simone. And I said, yes. She said, why don't you just become the writer in residence? Like, as if she's like, like it's not a big deal. She said, just become the writer in residence. You get to teach one class, and you can do some programming. And I'm like, are you kidding? Of course, I'd love to do that. And I finished the most of the book while I was the writer in residence at William and Mary. And then I was gifted a writer's residency at Gentile Residency in Wyoming. And I finished the second draft of the book. And that was another beautiful, just wonderful experience. And I can't say enough about it. Those kinds of residencies for writers are gold, just gold, and so needed. And just space and time just to focus and write, just to be around other writers and write. So that was just incredible. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm missing anyone, but those are my first readers. And then of course, Cody Cisco was the editor of Rise when I said, Cody, I just took this book back from, my agent. Would you like to look at this? And he was like, yeah. And when he finally got back to me, he was like, this is a beautiful book, and I would love to acquire it. And so Cody Cisco is my homie, just amazing for choosing this book. And thank you, Lisa, for bringing Rise to the forefront, knowing that we need something for BIPOC authors, and easily accessible for us to send material to. So thank you.
Oh, honestly, there's so much incredible material out there that I'm shocked there aren't more Rise imprints out in the world. And I'm shocked that they're not producing so much more work. It's just, and thank you for writing The Lost Songs of Nina Simone. I cannot tell you. So we have acquisition sessions, and in our acquisition session, we typically do a round table with our acquisition editors. And when we got to The Lost Songs of Nina Simone, it was just a complete no-brainer. Every single person at the table was like, no, we need to be a part of this. This is brilliant. So thank you so much for writing this incredible poetry book. It's just breathtaking. And for anybody who's watching, don't forget that this is also your opportunity to ask Shonda whatever you may choose. All you have to do is put your questions into the comments section of whatever venue you're watching, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're here. We would love to see your questions. So with that, I'm going to ask another question. So let's say you were at a dinner party with 4 seats. What 4 authors or other individuals would you invite to the table?
Oh my God, these are those impossible questions. Oh my gosh. Okay, living or dead?
Living or dead? Yeah, let's pretend we can bring back the dead.
My God. Oh my gosh. Okay. I know some amazing authors, I just have to say. And so let me see, who would I put at the dinner table? I've been at the dinner table with so many great folks. Okay, Walter Mosley is always like super fun. His stories, his sarcasm, his, and he's just like, the way he looks at the world is incredible. Maybe, who I would likely choose to is who I really adore, and I've never met her in person, is Amy Tan. And I would love to just kind of sit and ask questions of Amy Tan and just, really just say, hey, what's going on here? But Walter, I know Walter, I met him several times. Okay, so I only have 2 more people to invite to dinner. Oh my gosh, who would that be? Toni Morrison. I would definitely invite Toni Morrison. And because, I like self-flatulation, and I'd be so afraid to like, Toni Morrison is at my dinner table. What am I going to serve? What am I going to wear? But I met Toni a couple of times too. And it's just, every time it's been so incredibly powerful. Who I would love to have? Okay, I only have 1 more author to choose. Doggone it. So many. I would say I've never met Tony Adeyemi. I've only heard interviews, and then I've heard broadcasts with her about her work. But I really want to know about like the power of how she sustains character and the power, and she's actually, maybe this would not be a great comparison, but I consider her work along the lines of Sarah J. Maas, and it's just not as prolific as Sarah J. Maas, because Sarah J. Maas's books are like gigantic. And but I really adore, I've gotten into Sarah J. Maas over the last year, so I really, really adore a lot of her series as well. Maybe I'd invite Sarah J. Maas. I'd invite Sarah J. Maas to dinner too.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What is your drug of choice?
Ooh. Oh, my massage.
Oh, heck yeah.
I am a massage junkie. I am and massage, and then rest by the pool, or dunking in the water, a sauna.
Oh, love it. And what book is your guilty pleasure?
What is the book that I read, but I don't want people to know that I read? That is so interesting. I don't mind that people know. Well, okay, I'll say this. So I wrote a book called Equipoise, Poems from Goddess Country. Before I wrote that book, there was one book that I took the cover off because I really didn't want people to know that I was into goddess culture and reading goddess books. And so it's called The Crone. And I was like, I don't need people to know my business, but really it was like, I didn't want to answer questions of people who were going to ask me like, what does that mean? So then, of course, as a writer, I was like, why don't I just write a book of poetry, and then no one has to worry about asking me the question. They could just read my book. So
Mm.
maybe the crone, that was one many years ago when I was a young writer. And now everything on my shelf is free. And it's always been that way in my house with my daughter. Whatever was on my shelf, my daughter could read. And I think it's that way in her house too. Although she cultivates her books much more carefully than I did for my grandsons.
Oh, I love it. What movie or TV show is your guilty pleasure?
Ooh, The Diplomat.
Okay.
The Diplomat. I love the poetry in the narrative of The Diplomat. And you triggered something, actually. I want to say something about I'm coming back to my book, The Lost Songs, because today is book drop day. Woo! And everyone's getting their books. I'm getting a lot of pictures about my book just came. Yay! So I had someone reach out to me and she said, hey, I think that this should be a movie. So maybe that movie would be my guilty pleasure. So we'll see how that goes. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. That's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Do you read with music or quiet or some other sound?
Quiet.
Mm.
And I'm doing audiobook a lot as well. As I get older, it's interesting. I feel like it's not even that I can't concentrate. My eyes are changing.
Mm.
The strength of, sticking with a book for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours that I used to have, it's changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably for a lot of us as well. But yeah, books.
Awesome. If you could ask for one thing to change the world, what would it be? If you could ask for one thing to change the world, what would it be?
An end to poverty.
Yes.
Worldwide, and just like that. And if there was an end to poverty, that would impact access, like education, kids actually showing up to school because they're not hungry. Yeah, an end to poverty.
Oh, I love that. And what does your reading environment look and sound like?
So I just got back from Paris last night, and my reading environment was the airport in Orly, and it was the airplane. and I find that it's interesting. I used to really use that time to maybe accomplish a project or maybe try to get a nap in, because I'm always just I'm a bit of a workaholic. And finally, I think about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and I was like, why don't you, really, you love books and you're not reading as much. Why don't you try to use your travel time to start to ingest these books that you're not, that are on your shelf and then you're not able to read. And I was, and it was like, oh wait, I do have earbuds. I got these really state-of-the-art earbuds. I should, be doing that. So that's my reading environment. However, at home, where I am, I've got 3 reading chairs that I love, a reading nook on my couch. And I just bought a couple of those hanging chairs so I can read outside on my deck. So it's like to force myself to get back into the culture of the physicality of holding onto the pages. And then if I'm outside, I should have good light. I should.
Love it. Okay. Do you prefer paper, ebook, or audio?
It varies. Paper and audio. Ebook,
okay.
It feels a little cumbersome to me. And yeah.
Okay. Who would you cast as your main characters? Well, I don't know, maybe So you're already talking about possibly having the Lost Songs of Nina Simone being made into a film. So who would you cast?
I know her, I'm gonna look up her name really quickly because I want to make sure that I'm saying the last name correctly.
Okay.
And then once I say it, I'm gonna send it to her. So Dominique Fishback. I would love Dominique Fishback to play my Nina Simone character, and if I actually get to do another Nina Simone film, that's a narrative and a story. So Dominique is actually a student of my son-in-law. He is a pianist. My son-in-law, I've got to shout him out. He's Dionne Warwick's musical director.
Oh, wow.
And because of his a brilliant, amazing talent. And so he has, since COVID, he has been, before COVID, he was tutoring as well. But since COVID, he started teaching people online. And Dominique Fishback is one of his students. So, and I was like, oh, and once I write, if I wrote my Octavia Butler book, I would want her to be Octavia Butler. I would want her to be Nina Simone. So I've got Dominique like for my projects. Yeah, she doesn't know that I need the green light and the money, and then we can add her as the name.
Love it. Yes. Yes. If you could meet anybody, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Michelle Obama. And I would say, Michelle Obama, would you be my mentor? And and then what would make you say yes to becoming my mentor? So it would be
I love
Michelle.
It.
And if I couldn't get Michelle, it would be Ava DuVernay or Shonda Rhimes.
Yes. Oh my God. All fabulous. All absolutely fabulous. Describe yourself in 5 words.
Thoughtful, quirky, I'm just going to say this word because it's true. Sometimes careless, other times so serious. That's enough, right? That's 5. Yeah. I think that's 5. Yeah.
I think
loving. I should start with loving, and then I wouldn't be single. I'm loving and nurturing. But really, I'm quirky. I'm totally quirky. I am.
Okay. Describe your life in 5 words.
Rich, blessed, beautiful. I want to impossibly beautiful. Magnificent. Magical.
Wow. Fabulous. What was your last guilty pleasure?
Ooh. Oh, in Paris? Okay, so there's a place next door to this fantastic bookstore that I went to called Red Wheelbarrow Bookstore. And I will put you in contact with the owner of the bookstore. She was funny. Talk about quirky. She was hilarious. Anyway, 2 doors down from her bookstore, I went into a restaurant and I was like, oh, this looks like a real cool, laid back, could be in California restaurant. And looked at the menu and I was like, oh, this is soul food. I'm Black. Wait a minute. Okay, soul food in France. Let's check it out. They brought me the best mac and cheese I have ever had. I was like, I take you to be my lawfully wedded mac and cheese. I was laughing to myself, enjoying this meal. And so I think that is my new guilty pleasure. is like that, like now discovering who's got the best mac and cheese around the world. So if any restaurateurs are watching this, hit me up. I will IG for your restaurant. Should your mac and cheese be good? Mac and cheese is
yes. Okay, all right. I love it. That's awesome. If you could write yourself into a novel, would you be the hero or the villain, and why?
I'd be the complicated hero. I would likely be an assassin who had a hard childhood, but then became this like prodigy. I don't know, but I don't want to kill anybody. So maybe I would be, look, I'm like, wait, I'm rewriting the story. So maybe I would be someone who they were like, oh, it froze a little bit. Yeah, I think the part about the assassin is it's more so like, this guy cut me off. Man, if only I could, you know, or this person walked all over my yard, you know. So maybe I could be the assassin that never killed anyone. But I'm going to tell you, it's interesting. One of my first movies. Yeah, one of my first movies. I knew I had a friend who used to do the what do you call that in California? It's the focus groups. So he worked for a focus group company. I saw tons of movies with him. And I said, you know what? I should write a movie. So my first movie that I was writing was the assassin who had lost the taste for killing. And then they were trying to kill him. So after I said that, over the years, I've seen like 10 movies like that. And I'm like, who did you tell? My idea too. Anyway, apparently I'm always to write about assassins. So yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone that you dream you could work with, and why?
Oh yes. I dream I can work with Shonda Rhimes because Shonda Rhimes has a sensibility that I love in terms of how she moves between worlds, and then the cacophony of characters in her work. So Grey's Anatomy and all the plates that are spinning, and all of Bridgerton, and just all the plates that are spinning, and it's such a gorgeous way of looking at the world from a different POV than other people have looked at the world. And I know people over the years, they've said to her, those characters wouldn't be this color. Those characters wouldn't be Asian. Why do you have an Asian or an Indian protagonist, Indian from India? And they absolutely were in England at that time. And they were in around the world. So it's just our small memories that make those kinds of stories seem implausible. When it's on a larger scale, she's capturing a lot of things on a larger scale. So Shonda Rhimes, I'd love to work with her for that, because I think that the stories that I want to tell have her sensibility. Definitely Ava DuVernay, Queen Sugar. Oh my gosh, the New York Five. I mean, so her documentaries are incredible and well researched and meticulous. And then the narratives, the actual family dramas that she tells are lovely and amazing. I also have to say, I would love to work with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Okay. I have been they have been on my radar. I have not been on their radar. They have been on my radar for a few years. And I think maybe because they started the Green Light Project, and I'm not sure if they're still doing Green Light, but it was essentially you can, if you're not of the industry, you can still submit something to them. and I knew someone who worked with them, and I told her, I said, hey, I'm turning my memoir into a screenplay, and I'd love for them to read it. And then COVID happened. So it was like, oh man. And then, after COVID, that's like a recovery, 3 years recovering. So that's what I'm doing now, is still working for my memoir, and we'll see how that goes. But I'd love to work with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Jodie Foster. Okay, let me stop. I have a list.
Okay, 2 truths and a lie.
I'm supposed to tell two truths and a lie?
Mm-hmm.
2 truths. Two truths and a lie. Okay, a truth is that I am very supportive of my partners, my family, my friends. Very supportive. Another truth, however, is that I'm also very protective of my own space, my own writing space. And so that sometimes also gets in between I show up for my friends. If I'm there and I have the capacity, I show up for readings and workshops and everything. But also if I'm working on my own thing, it's like, I'm so sorry, I have this to do, but I'm going to come back to you. We'll lunch. A lie. What is a lie? I am very good at hiding how I feel. That is a lie.
Okay. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think what I would love to share with the audience is the idea that whatever the book is that people are working on right now, and maybe they're a little doubtful, just keep pushing and keep persevering, because every step of the way, I just doubted that I was good enough to write this book about Nina, and feeling like at a certain point, it's like, just you don't have to keep working on this book. It's okay. And there are some hard poems in here too. Nina Simone's life was charmed at the beginning. I'm so sorry. I just heard a voice saying, no, not quite. She was born in poverty, a large family in Tryon, North Carolina. When she came, to hear her tell it in her memoir, it was like, wait a minute, there's one more mouth to feed, and a girl at that. So can she work? So I've got poems talking about that in the book. And then the child prodigy part, where the entire community came together, contributed to the fund to give Nina Simone piano lessons. And excuse me, I mean, who does that? What community does that? So, so sorry.
No.
Allergies from Paris. So I think I want to tell people to persevere, because I did. And it became a book. Hopefully it will win some kind of an award.
Well, with that, again, I want to thank you, Shonda, so much for sharing this brilliant book, The Lost Songs of Nina Simone, with the world. If you have not checked it out, please go to her website. The link is within the screen or on the screen, and go buy it, read it, love it. And again, thank you so much for sharing it with us, and congratulations on this phenomenal book day.
Thank you so very much. Apparently I couldn't get through a broadcast without crying. So I'm like, oh no, I was going to tell you at the beginning, I always cry in my, my broadcasts. Apparently, Universe was like, oh, you must shed a tear for me, Simone. So,
well, it's
thank you so very much for choosing this book. Oh, did it freeze? Okay. Technology.
You are back.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.